We begin with brand new polling showing former President Trump pulling ahead of Vice President Kamala Harris. Maybe a sign that her momentum has stalled. New York Times Siena College poll shows Trump leading Harris by 1 point in this super tight race. And the new polls show Trump also remains popular with a 46% approval rating. That's big. Better than where he stood in either of his last two presidential campaigns. And this poll is being called one of Trump's most overlooked advantages. Voters see Trump as closer to the center than Harris, and nearly half of all voters say that Harris is too liberal or progressive. That explains all of her flip-flopping. Those policies, they simply won't get her to the White House. But just ask Bernie Sanders. He seems to know this.
You have described Vice President Kamala Harris as a progressive. She has previously supported Medicare for all. Now she does not. She's previously supported a ban on fracking. Now she does not. These, Senator, are ideas that you have campaigned on. Do you think that she is abandoning her progressive ideals?
No, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she's trying to be pragmatic and doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election.
Republicans everywhere rejoiced with that soundbite. Look, Molly, this reminded me of the Etch-a-Sketch comment from the senior advisor to the Romney campaign, where he said a general election campaign is an Etch-a-Sketch. You shake it up and you change everything. And he got widely derided for that. That is essentially the same thing. He's saying she's still liberal progressive. She's just hiding it. And it bears asking all of the American public, does she still support all of this? We'll scroll at her 2019 policies. Medicare for all, banning fracking, the list goes on, Medicare, Green New Deal, an extreme list.
Well, first off, I think it's worth pointing out that she hasn't actually changed her positions on anything according to her own speaking. She's had anonymous sources in her campaign come out to compliant reporters and claim she has changed her long-held, consistently held positions from when she was Attorney General of California, when she was senator, when she was running for vice president, or even as vice president. So she's got a lot of consistency. But it is true that she's willing to say almost anything to get elected. And my favorite example of this is actually back in 2020, when in the Democrat primary debate, you might recall she called President Biden a horrific racist. She was asked about it on a late night show later, and she said, you know, they were like, why would you be on the same ticket as someone who you said was this horrible person? And she kept saying it was just a debate. So she has this track record of being willing to say whatever is needed, but I think voters should probably look at what her actual policies have been over the course of the election.
And I'm feeling really good this morning, not just because of this New York Times Siena poll, but I was digging through some of the numbers on Real Clear Politics, and I want to put this up. This is where nationally Real Clear Politics stands. You'll see there Harris has a 1.4% advantage, but compare that to Biden. 7.5% advantage. Compare that to Hillary, 2.7% advantage. Flip to Pennsylvania, where it is a tie. Look at the advantage. She's running behind Biden by 4.5 points. She's running behind Clinton by 6.5 points. She's not standing up to the numbers her predecessors put up.
Well, that's a great point, Kaylee, and there's a lot to be excited about if you're the Trump campaign. But I think the thing that they may also be happy about is that across this polling in the New York Times is that Americans don't know who she is. Is she the progressive liberal that espoused all those things in 2019 in the primary? Is she the centrist? Bernie Sanders perhaps said the quiet part out loud there. Her values haven't changed, by the way. That's the only thing she said in one interview she's done since she became the nominee. But when you look into that poll, 28% said they needed to know more about her, compared to only 9% said they needed to know more about Trump, which means they don't really know where she stands. As you point out, that policy page is as vague as can be. There's no real specifics to dig into. And I think the most damning number in that poll, by the way, is 56% of voters said that Harris does not represent major change. So she tried to separate herself from any specifics to not nail her down, to be the candidate of change, and yet now more than half of the voters in that poll say we don't see her as a change candidate.
Yeah, Molly, I do want to pull up that change number that's been mentioned repeatedly, and you see it here. So more than 60% of voters want change, and only 25% say Harris represents the change, 53% say Trump does. The reason I want to focus on this is because look, run away from the Biden legacy. If I'm Kamala Harris, my job on that stage is not to create a legacy for Biden that doesn't exist. It's to win an election. And that means saying, I stood up to him here, I stood up to him there.
Yeah.
This is where he is wrong. It means being tough. I don't think she could do that.
Well, I mean, she's got a very difficult situation here with this debate that she's going into. She has to run against everything she's ever said or done as an elected official. She's also got to run against her current administration. She's the incumbent. And that effort that has definitely been made to sort of bamboozle the American public into thinking she's not the incumbent has clearly failed, probably because the American people are not stupid. And then she also has to run against Donald Trump. I think we really can't understate how dramatic these New York Times poll results are. You know, you pointed out what was happening 4 years ago. This New York Times Siena poll 4 years ago had Biden up 8 points. She's down 1. I mean, that's a 9-point spread. And you remember 2016 and 2020 were essentially tied elections. One that Trump narrowly won and one that Trump narrowly lost. If she's running 8 points behind her predecessor, that's extremely bad news and explains why Democrats are in a bit of panic mode today.
Bamboozle, bamboozle, damning, damning, incumbent, incumbent, spread, spread, vague, vague, predecessor, predecessor, deride, deride, pragmatic, pragmatic, stalled, stalled. The report contained damning evidence of the company's unethical practices. The report contained damning evidence of the company's unethical practices. The damning testimony from the key witness led to the defendant's conviction. The damning testimony from the key witness led to the defendant's conviction. The damning review by the critic ruined the film's reputation. The damning review by the critic ruined the film's reputation. The politician's damning comments about his opponent were broadcasted widely. The politician's damning comments about his opponent were broadcasted widely.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.